You ever wake up coffee in hand and find your pristine front yard looking like it's been hit by a flash flood? That was me 3 weeks ago. Whispering Pines. Estates is usually the picture of calm, but that morning my lawn was soaked, puddles everywhere, and the garden hose lay coiled by the spigot, warmer than it should have been. I thought maybe I'd left it on overnight, but when I checked the water meter, the numbers were spinning out of control. Then the bills arrived. A spike I couldn't ignore. That's when it clicked. The strange, sudden water usage, the timing, the chaos. Could it have been her? The HOA president, always so insistent on controlling every inch of our neighborhood? It all made sense now. I lived alone. No kids leaving sprinklers on, no roommates absent-mindedly watering the lawn, and certainly no garden gnomes throwing midnight irrigation parties. Just me, my coffee machine, and a lawn that seemed to be secretly hydrating itself. At first, I thought maybe the automatic sprinkler timer had gone haywire, but then I remembered I didn't even have sprinklers, just one suspicious hose. And my water bill? It had skyrocketed, as if I'd been running a car wash or filling a pool every night. The only thing in my yard was a sad bird bath and a rusty barbecue grill. So where was all that water going? I decided to ask around. My neighbors were mostly polite but kept to themselves, except for Karen. She'd moved in across the street and quickly became the self-appointed queen of the block. She wasn't the HOA president, but she might as well have been, walking around with a clipboard, scrutinizing lawns and flower beds like a suburban sheriff. She'd already filed complaints about Mrs. Henderson's teal shutters, told Mr. Albright to cut his grass shorter, and even scolded the mailman for parking too aggressively. But a thief? That seemed too much even for Karen. Yet something about the skyrocketing water bill made me wonder. I started watching her closely, my suspicion growing with each passing day. Karen, I was sure, had something to do with it. Then came Saturday. I'd just returned from the store, bags in hand, when I saw her, Karen, in her signature sun hat, dragging my hose across the lawn like she had every right. She hooked it up to a brand new pressure washer and started blasting away at her porch. No shame, no permission, just blatant theft. I sat there, frozen, my car still running, bags of groceries teetering in the front seat. She looked up, saw me, and gave a cheerful wave as if this was normal. "Hope you don't mind," she called out over the noise. "Your water pressure is just so much better than mine." I was speechless, stunned by the audacity. But instead of confronting her, I did nothing, just sat there, fuming, as she resumed her washing. Inside, I dropped the groceries and stared at my faucet like it was the enemy. This wasn't just about water anymore. It was about boundaries. Later, I knocked on her door. "Is your water line okay?" I asked, trying to be polite. She laughed. "Oh no, I just like your hose better. It's all community property, right?" I nearly choked. "No, Karen, it's not. My water isn't your freebie." She tilted her head, smiled, and said, "I'm sure the HOA won't mind." With a flick of her wrist, she closed the door. I stood there, fury and resolve bubbling up. She had crossed a line. Not anymore. Here's the thing about me. I don't yell or do dramatic confrontations. I solve problems quietly. So, I took the proper channels route. I emailed the HOA with proof of Karen's water theft, including photos of her pressure washing and a copy of my sky-high water bill, asking for clarification on this community property policy. A few days later, I got a bland response. "Thank you for your concern. Please resolve minor disputes amicably without HOA intervention. Translation, not our problem." Frustrated, I moved to Plan B. I bought a sturdy lock for the hose spigot. Problem solved, right? Wrong. The next morning, I walked outside to find the lock gone. Not just unlocked, but cut off. Someone had used bolt cutters. I stood there, staring at the damaged brass, boiling with rage. And there she was, Karen, wearing a hideous fuchsia sun hat, happily spraying down her SUV with my water, grinning like she owned the place. I marched over to her. "Karen, did you cut the lock off my spigot?" She smiled that condescending smile. "Oh, that. It was a safety hazard. Someone could trip. I took care of it for you. You're welcome." She flipped her hair and went back to scrubbing her tires. I couldn't believe it. I walked back inside, my mind racing. The HOA was useless and Karen was a sociopath. I was financing her pristine porch and SUV. That's when the idea of surveillance hit me. Not a clunky CCTV system, but something subtle. A tiny motion-activated security camera tucked under the gutter, aimed straight at the spigot. If locks and polite requests couldn't stop her, maybe irrefutable proof would. Or better yet, maybe I'd capture something so unmistakably Karen that the internet would serve the justice the HOA was too spineless to deliver. After all, people online love an entitled thief caught in 4K. 2 days later, I had it. The footage was crystal clear. Karen sneaking into my yard before dawn, oversized sunglasses perched on her nose, dragging the hose like she owned the place. She wasn't just rinsing her porch, she watered her flower beds, filled a kiddie pool, and even bathed her fluffy white Persian cat. All before I'd had my coffee. I had it all on tape. The question was, confront her with this evidence or escalate? The HOA had already failed me. The lock had been a joke to her. After hours of deliberation, I edited a short clip, posted it on the neighborhood forum. Neighborly sharing or brazen theft, you decide. The video went viral. People were outraged. And then Karen saw it. The next morning, no sneaky hose dragging. Instead, a furious pounding on my door. No sun hat, no smile, just pure rage. She accused me of violating her privacy, slandering her name, and creating a hostile environment. I calmly replied, "Karen, you were on my property stealing my water. That's a hostile environment." She crossed her arms, seething, and dared me. "Do something about it. I dare you." That challenge, her arrogance, lit a fire in me. And believe me, I was going to do something about it, something she'd never forget. The dare echoed in my mind. If Karen wanted water, she was going to get it, but not the kind she expected. Revenge, I decided, is a dish best served cold, or in this case, rather murky. First, though, I needed to understand the true extent of her audacity and perhaps her motives. Was this just about better water pressure, or was there something more calculated at play? I started paying closer attention, not just to my own spigot, but to the neighborhood's general water usage patterns. I noticed Karen chatting animatedly with old Mr. Henderson down the street, whose hose was often left out. Another day, I saw her helping Mrs. Gable, a sweet but somewhat frail widow, by testing her sprinklers, letting them run for an unusually long time. A disturbing pattern began to emerge. Karen wasn't just an opportunistic water thief with a penchant for my hose. She seemed to be systematically exploiting multiple sources. My casual investigation intensified. I started making notes. I subtly asked Mr. Henderson if Karen often borrowed his water. He chuckled. "Oh, Karen, such a helpful lady, always offering to check things, make sure our community standards are up. Says she's just making sure everyone's utilities are in top shape, sharing the load, you know. Saves us all a bit in the long run, she reckons." Saves us all? Or saves her? The pieces clicked. This wasn't just about convenience, it was about a deliberate, manipulative scheme. I even, in a moment of inspired snooping, retrieved a discarded planner from her recycling bin, left carelessly on the curb. Tucked inside, a page with budget notes. Goal, reduce utility bill by $1,000 this year. Water, utilize community resources. The audacity was breathtaking. She was orchestrating a neighborhood-wide water heist, charming and manipulating vulnerable residents into thinking she was doing them a favor, all to save $1,000. The rage I felt was cold and sharp. The HOA, predictably, was still wringing its hands. After the viral video, they sent Karen a timid letter suggesting she be more mindful of neighborly resource sharing, which was about as effective as a chocolate teapot. They were more concerned about the online negativity than the actual theft and property destruction. That was it. The system had failed. It was time for my own brand of justice, something more elaborate than a simple lock. I recalled the motion-triggered sprinkler idea, but water on water? Too tame. Then, fate intervened. Driving past a new housing development on the edge of Whispering Pines, I saw a construction crew setting up a large temporary sewage holding tank for their portable toilets. Not just any tank. This was an industrial-grade behemoth. A terrible, brilliant, utterly satisfying idea began to form, a symphony of payback conducting itself in my mind. I pulled over, struck up a conversation with a weary-looking foreman, feigning interest in temporary irrigation solutions for a large landscaping project. I spun a tale about needing to test high-volume, nutrient-rich water flow. He seemed amused, but after I compensated him for his time and the potential loan of access for a single evening for testing purposes only, he shrugged. "Long as you don't mess with the main pump or leave a mess, knock yourself out, lady. What you pump is your business." That was all the permission I needed. Back home, my garage transformed into a DIY workshop. I wasn't just going to prank her, I was going to engineer her comeuppance. I purchased a heavy-duty secondary hose, a remote-controlled valve splitter, and some basic plumbing supplies. The plan was intricate. My main spigot would now have 2 potential outlets, selectable via a hidden switch in my garage. One line would deliver normal, clean water from the city supply. The other line, buried discreetly beneath a new layer of mulch and routed behind my prize-winning azaleas, would connect directly to a fertilizer concentrate I planned to test. The outward appearance of my spigot and primary hose would remain unchanged. She'd never know if she was about to get a refreshing spray or a pungent surprise TM. It was Russian roulette, but with garden hoses and a much smellier bullet. I spent an evening carefully laying the secondary hose, connecting it to an adapter I'd fashioned for the sewage tank's outlet under the cover of darkness. The testing at the construction site involved filling a couple of large sealed containers with the tank's contents. The smell alone during the transfer, even with a mask, was enough to make my eyes water. It was perfect. I transported the containers back home, decanted them into a similarly sealed and very well hidden dispersal tank connected to my new valve system. I did one brief, contained test using a bucket at the end of the special line. The dark, viscous liquid that gurgled out, along with its accompanying olfactory assault, confirmed the system was brutally effective. Now, all I had to do was wait, ensuring my cameras were perfectly positioned and recording. I left the main hose coiled invitingly, the bait laid, the trap armed. The next morning, right on schedule, around 10:30 a.m., I heard it. The familiar soft hiss of my spigot being turned, followed by the telltale drag of the hose across my lawn. My heart gave a little flutter of grim anticipation. I pulled up the live camera feed on my phone. There she was, oblivious, resplendent in yoga pants and a Live Laugh Love t-shirt that seemed particularly ironic given what was about to happen. She didn't even glance around this time, her confidence bordering on regal arrogance. She'd brought out a new toy, a fancy oscillating sprinkler, the kind that spins in a wide, graceful circle. She placed it carefully in the center of her own perfectly manicured lawn, adjusted the spray pattern, and then, with a flourish, cranked my spigot to full blast. The first sign something was amiss was a weird gurgle from the hose, a hesitant sputter. Karen tilted her head, a flicker of confusion crossing her face. Then it hit. Not a gentle spray, but a sudden, violent jet of thick, dark, indescribably putrid liquid erupted from the sprinkler. It shot out in a wide, brown arc, drenching her pristine emerald lawn, her white picket fence, and, most gloriously, her expensive white wicker patio furniture. The sprinkler spun once, painting a nauseating swathe. Twice. By the third rotation, as the vile concoction began to aerosolize into a truly gag-inducing mist, she was screaming. A raw, piercing shriek that could have shattered glass, clearly audible even through my closed windows. Neighbors, drawn by the unholy screeching, started poking their heads out of doors and windows. Mr. Henderson, mid-sip of his morning coffee, actually dropped his mug. Mrs. Albright, from her upstairs window, gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Someone across the street even started filming with their phone. Karen, now panicking, ran towards my spigot, slipping and sliding on her newly befouled grass as it rapidly transformed into a miniature, fragrant swamp. She wrestled with the hose, yanking it from the sprinkler as if it were a venomous serpent. But not before another powerful spray of concentrated humiliation blasted her squarely on the shins and soaked her Live Laugh Love t-shirt. She was covered, screaming, coughing, and best of all, there were witnesses. Multiple, horrified, soon-to-be gossiping witnesses who had seen the whole grotesque ballet. I watched it all on my camera feed, a slow, deeply satisfied smile spreading across my face. This wasn't just revenge. This was performance art. This was poetic justice, delivered via repurposed waste. Later that day, feigning ignorance, I strolled outside to check my mail. Karen, still visibly shaken, clothes ruined, and smelling faintly of a backed-up abattoir despite a frantic hosing down, with her own hose, I noted with satisfaction, saw me. She stormed over, her face a mask of fury. "You! This is your fault! I'm calling the police! The EPA! This is a biohazard! You threatened me! You assaulted me!" she shrieked, spittle flying. I didn't raise my voice. I just smiled, a calm, serene smile. "Karen," I said softly, "you told me to do something about it. So I did. You wanted my water so badly? You got it." Her face contorted through a fascinating range of colors, red, then a sickly green, then back to puce. She stomped off, still yelling about lawsuits and chemical warfare. I waved pleasantly. "Be sure to tell the HOA the water wasn't stolen this time," I called after her. "It was a gift." That night, the footage, not mine but the neighbor's shaky phone video, complete with gasps and Karen's operatic screams, inevitably found its way online. Titled "Karen's Karma, a Cautionary Tale in Brown," it broke the local internet. Within hours, it was being shared with glee across various platforms. Karen was now officially infamous, and not for her meticulously maintained flower beds. The neighborhood dynamic shifted overnight. People weren't just whispering anymore. They were openly chuckling. From the moment Karen's unexpected sewage spa day went viral, her carefully constructed reign of terror crumbled. The video spread like a particularly pungent wildfire, especially after someone cleverly edited in dramatic slow-motion replays of her slip and slide through the muck, set to "Oh Fortuna." Strangers were tagging friends, commenting with crying, laughing emojis and sharing their own nightmare neighbor stories. But I knew Karen. The sewage stunt was merely phase 1. Humiliation wouldn't make her learn, it would make her plot. Sure enough, a few days later, a very official-looking, lawyer-drafted letter appeared in my mailbox, hand-delivered. It was filled with legalistic jargon, accusing me of intentional sabotage, personal endangerment, and biological assault. She even ludicrously claimed her prize-winning Persian, Snowball, had suffered severe emotional distress and a mysterious ailment from the toxic fumes, despite my camera footage clearly showing Snowball safely indoors during the entire incident. I almost pitied her lawyer if she'd actually retained one foolish enough to take this on. But the letter confirmed my suspicions. Karen wasn't backing down. So I initiated phase 2, the full institutional counteroffensive. I had already gathered my evidence of her wider water theft scheme, her manipulation of elderly neighbors, and her audacious 1,000 utility-saving plot. I compiled everything, my camera footage, all of it time-stamped, copies of my water bills, screenshots of her community resources budget note, and even notarized statements from Mr. Henderson and Mrs. Gable, once they realized how they'd been duped. I found the golden ticket in the HOA bylaws, Section 4.12b. Any homeowner caught trespassing on another resident's property without express permission, particularly for the use of utilities, will be subject to immediate investigation, fines, and potential removal from HOA benefits. I didn't just send this damning dossier to the HOA. I sent copies to every resident on our street and a few key figures in the wider Whispering Pines community. I didn't start a war. I merely armed the existing disgruntled populace. Within days, Glenn, the guy whose hammock Karen had deemed excessively colorful, knocked on my door to shake my hand. Other neighbors followed, sharing their own tales of Karen's petty tyrannies. Her carefully cultivated image of a concerned community leader shattered. The final nail in her coffin was a leaked audio recording from a recent and very heated private HOA board meeting. On it, Karen could be heard berating the board, her voice shrill and entitled, accusing them of failing to protect her from jealous, vindictive neighbors who can't handle a strong, proactive woman. 2 days later, Karen came outside. Sunglasses on, no makeup, shoulders slumped. She got into her SUV, still bearing faint, stubborn brown streaks on the undercarriage, and drove away without a word or a glance. The street felt instantly lighter, calmer, peaceful. But I wasn't naive. People like Karen don't just vanish. They retreat, regroup, and relocate their particular brand of toxicity. That's why the remote valve switch remained active, the cameras vigilant. A week later, a moving truck rumbled up to Karen's house. No dramatic farewells, no final clipboard patrol. She just evaporated. Her house was listed for sale by the end of the week. The new owners, a young couple with a cherubic toddler, introduced themselves with a plate of homemade cookies and politely asked if it was okay to use their own hose spigot, as they planned to set up a small sprinkler for their child. The sheer, unadulterated normalcy of it almost made me weep with relief. The story, however, took one final amusing twist. An email landed in my inbox from a Devon in a neighboring HOA. Karen, it turned out, was his new neighbor, and had, with predictable speed, begun her reign of terror there, complaining about wind chimes, a trespassing cat, and inevitably, Devon had caught her dragging his hose across his yard to wash her car. He'd found my viral video and was seeking advice. I gleefully sent him my Karen defense protocol, complete with schematics for the valve system and camera recommendations. His reply was succinct. This means war. A few days later, a new video surfaced. Karen's Revenge Part 2, The Compost Tea Catastrophe. Devon, inspired, had used a concoction of expired fertilizer and pungent compost tea. Karen, sprayed yet again, slipped dramatically into her prize rose bushes. The internet rejoiced. I started a small blog, Suburban Skirmishes and HOA Horrors, sharing anonymized tales of neighborhood drama, mine included. It became a surprising hit. I even designed a t-shirt, My Hose, My Rules. But the true victory wasn't the fame, the blog, or even the deep, satisfying thrum of vindication. It was the quiet afternoons in my backyard, trimming hedges, hearing the new neighbor's child shriek with laughter as they played in their own sprinkler, using their own water from their own hose. That was the real win. Peace, normalcy, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that sometimes, even in the manicured jungle of suburbia, justice, however unorthodox, can indeed flow. My hose, now a symbol of that hard-won peace, watered my tomato plant, which, perhaps sensing the shift in the cosmic balance, was finally thriving. It felt like home again,